Welcome to this episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. I'm Taylor Burton-Edwards, Liturgy Man with Discipleship Ministries of the United Methodist Church. I'm your apportionment dollars that work to help you strengthen worship and the understanding of worship where you are. Today's question comes to us from Joshua King, pastor in the Virginia Conference of the United Methodist Church, who asked on the UMC Worship Facebook group about the origin of the practice of the pastor typically being the one who serves the bread at Holy Communion. Well, as I shared with Joshua in the Facebook group and with others who are part of it, this practice goes back as far as we know anything about Christian ritual and how Christian ritual was being done. We find evidence for this in the liturgy of St. Chrysostom, which is to this day, from the late 4th century on with some other developments, the liturgy that has been used in the Orthodox Church. Happen to have here the Divine Liturgy, Liturgy of Chrysostom from the Orthodox Church in America, the Russian Orthodox Church version of that in America. And it simply points out the typical practice, which is that the bread is broken into particles, put into the chalice, and then the priest serves everyone from a spoon, lifting the spoon with some bread in it and some wine in it from the chalice directly into their mouths. When I discussed the reason for this practice with the dean of the cathedral at the Russian Orthodox Church in Pittsburgh some years ago, he described it to me as this pastorally and liturgically is a sign of the role of the pastor, and ultimately the role of Jesus, feeding the sheep. And so this idea of the pastor feeding the people, the pastor being the one who administers the bread and the cup, in this case through the spoon, is that image of the pastor feeding the people. And that's what you find in the description here in the Divine Liturgy of Chrysostom, starting in the late 4th century, which is about as far back as we have any significant descriptions of who's doing what when. Now, this tradition of the pastor serving actually both kinds continues not just in the Eastern Church, but continues in the Western Church well into the 20th century. We find it described in John Wesley's Sunday service from 1784, our first official ritual as the Methodist Episcopal Church beginning at that time, where it says, "Then shall the minister first receive communion in both kinds himself, then proceed to deliver it to the same to other ministers, capital M, for other pastors, if any be present, and after that to the people also, in order into their hands, with specific words being given by the pastor as the pastor directly delivers them to each person, first the bread and then the cup." We find very similar practice described in the 1886 hymnal and ritual of the Methodist Episcopal Church South, which was similar to what was happening in the North as well at the time. My grandmother's hymnal was part of that church. Her mother was. This is my great-grandmother's hymnal, actually. It says, "The minister shall deliver both kinds to the people into their hands." Both kinds. The pastor is the one who serves both the bread and the cup. 1905 ritual. "Then shall the minister receive the communion in both kinds and proceed to deliver the same to other ministers, capital M, if any be present, after which he shall say to the persons receiving," and then it gives, again, that same idea of the person who is, the pastor delivers the bread, says words about the bread, the pastor delivers the cup, says words about the cup, but it's the minister who is serving everyone, the pastor feeding the people. We continue to see exactly that same language also in the 1939 hymnal and the 1945 Book of Worship. It's literally the same thing as what we just read from the 1905 ritual. And we also see it in the EUB tradition, in the EUB hymnal of 1957, where it says, "Then shall the minister receive communion in both kinds and deliver it to the other ministers assisting, if there be any. And then the minister, when he delivers the bread, shall say, and when he delivers the cup, shall say." So the presumption is that even if you have others there, it's the pastor who ultimately is delivering the bread and the cup. It is not until the 1964 hymnal, 1965 book of worship, that you start to see any variation in that. And so this has been going on for centuries, that the pastor is the one who feeds the people, both kinds. Here it says, though, the minister shall first receive Holy Communion, and then shall deliver the same to any who are assisting. Not other ministers, but any who are assisting. So that now there's this opportunity for people who are not pastors, who are not clergy, to be part of delivering, beginning in the 60s, after Vatican II, quite significantly. Then the minister or those assisting shall deliver the elements in both kinds to the people. The understanding would be the minister is still doing that, but it's not limited anymore to the minister being the one who is doing this. Our current ritual takes it the furthest, where it simply says, the bread and wine are given to the people, with these or other words being exchanged. It does not specify that the pastor is the one who is necessarily doing it. So what would I suggest is an appropriate practice, given all that history, and given that kind of core practice, core understanding of the pastor feeding the people as part of what's happening at communion? I would suggest very simply this. The pastor certainly should serve the bread at least one of the stations, if there is a pastor. Let the pastor serve the bread. Good plan. That helps to symbolize that sense of the pastor feeding the people. But then others, as long as they are baptized Christians, are welcome to be assistants. Hope this is helpful. Remember, you are always able to contact me through worship at liturgyfolks.com, through the UMC Worship Facebook group like Joshua did, or drop a line on this page. Perhaps your question or comment will become the basis for a future episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. The peace of Christ be always with you.